Let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump and his somewhat all over the place comments that he made to an Israeli news outlet. The reaction to those comments from the two right-wing Israeli journalists who were interviewing him is now being reported in the New York Times. I can put this up on the screen. So the headline here is Trump's call for Israel to, quote, finish up war alarms some on the right. Recent remarks he made urging an end to the Gaza conflict with no insistence on freeing Israeli hostages first were another departure from conservative support for Netanyahu. So they write here, two Israeli journalists traveled to Palm Beach, Florida a little over a week ago, hoping to elicit from Donald J. Trump a powerful expression of support for their country's war in Gaza. Instead, one of them wrote that what they heard from Mr. Trump at Mar-a-Lago, quote, shocked us to the core. Both U.S. presidential candidates Biden and Trump are turning their rhetorical backs on Israel. This is so delusional, by the way, on every level, both about Biden and about Trump. But anyway, concluded Ariel Kahana, a right-wing settler who is the senior diplomatic correspondent for Israel Hayom. The newspaper is owned by the billionaire Republican donor Miriam Adelson. Ms. Adelson has arranged the interview with Mr. Trump personally, according to a person with direct knowledge of the planning. And just as a little reminder of a bit of what he said in that interview, let's go ahead and listen to Donald Trump.
They would have never done that because they knew there would have been very big consequences. All right. That being said, you have to finish up your war. You have to finish it up. You got to get it done. And I'm sure you'll do that. And we got to get to peace. You can't have this going on. And I will say Israel has to be very careful because you're losing a lot of the world. You're losing a lot of support. But you have to finish up, you have to get the job done, and you have to get on to peace. You have to get on to a normal life for Israel and for everybody else. They say if I ran for office in Israel, I'd get 98% of the vote. I'm not Jewish, and yet Israel to me is very important.
He goes on to say that's why I did Golan Heights, a reminder of the fact that he was staunchly pro-Israel when he was president of the United States the last time around. But one of those journalists reacting, saying Trump effectively bypassed Biden from the left when he expressed willingness to stop this war and get back to being the great country you once were. There's no way to beautify, minimize, or cover up that problematic message. So a bit of a freak out there over those comments, which is amusing.
I found it really funny, but actually really worth reading this piece. Jonathan Swan, always a very good reporter and astute. And he had an interesting thing I definitely wanted to get your reaction to, Krystal. This is John Podhoretz. He's the editor of commentary. People who don't know, we call him J-Pod online, probably one of the most unhinged Israel supporters. Has attacked the show, me and you many times. Previously only known because his father was a respected intellectual, but many such cases here in Washington, D.C. Anyway, here's what he says, quote, the only difference between Trump and Biden, and I say this as somebody who is not a supporter of Biden, is that Biden has put his money where his mouth is. He's been sending arms, Mr. Podhoretz said, so that he seems to suggest operationally the problem with Biden is rhetoric and not policy. Trump is rhetoric, and he's not laying out any policy that should make anybody feel good. Now, I found that very noteworthy because, as you can see there, the actual diehards for Israel are very much appreciative of Joe Biden. They are annoyed that he won't rhetorically back him, but they're like, hey, he's been sending the arms. That's what we actually want. We want to send the weapons. Trump is a genuine wild card. You have no idea. And the irony is that Trump doesn't care. He doesn't care about anything. And in fact, what comes through is that he has, quote, never forgiven Benjamin Netanyahu for congratulating Joe Biden as the winner of the 2020 election.
He's so petty.
Hey, listen, take what you can get, right? With Trump, that may be the one thing that will undercut his previous love affair with Netanyahu. For example, in 2021, Mr. Trump told Axios journalist Barak Ravid he had concluded Netanyahu never wanted peace with the Palestinians, and his first reaction after October 7th was to criticize Bibi and the intelligence services. His advisors then privately pleaded with him to clean up his comments, and then he eventually turned to standard lines of support before returning to the ambiguity of, you got to wrap this thing up now as much as possible. I mean, look, I've always put at least some faith in Trump's complete indifference on these issues because with Trump, it's better rather than Biden. Biden is ideological in some ways, sometimes good, Afghanistan, sometimes horrible, like in many, Ukraine, for example, Israel. With Trump, he'll just go wherever the wind blows. And what struck out to me was with Trump throughout the whole thing, he's like, it's becoming a real problem. You know, you look all over the world, people are really starting to abandon you. You got to wrap things up. He's like an outside observer. And with that, now we don't know what policy will happen, you know, if he were to assume the presidency. But at the very least, he is a genius in one respect, which is public relations and with how things are shifting politically and where to stake out a position. And that's why it was extraordinary to hear him say, like, oh, yeah, you got to wrap it up as soon as possible.
The safest assumption with Trump is obviously that he's going to conduct himself the same way he did last time, which is overwhelming pro-Israel support. And one thing that was noteworthy in that interview that didn't get as enough attention is the interviewers asked specifically about this proposal from Trump's ambassador to Israel when he was president of the United States, where his proposal asked for Israel to fully assert sovereignty over the West Bank, what he, of course, calls Judea and Samaria. And they asked Trump about it, and he basically indicated he was open to it. I mean, that's the thing is, you're right that he doesn't have the same ideological, fervent commitment to Israel that Joe Biden clearly does.
Right.
He is a purely transactional character. However, always up to this point in the modern, you know, in the past 30 years or whatever, that transactional math always, especially on the Republican side at this point, adds up to fervent, unconditional support of whatever the hell Israel wants to do. Because remember, the strongest, most lockstep, diehard supporters, not just of Israel, but of Netanyahu and Smotrich and Ben-Gvir and whatever insanity and psychosis they want to unleash, is not actually Jewish Americans. It's the white evangelical Christians who make up the most important part and the most fervent supporters of Donald Trump. You also have, you know, part of why last time around he was so pro-Israel is not just because of Kushner, but because of the close relationship and the money that came from Sheldon Adelson. So it's not clear to me that any of that fundamental transactional math has really shifted from him. So I can't have any like hope or expectation that the fact that he made these like sort of vague comments saying you got to wrap it up, which can also be construed as you need to sort of like, you know, the guy who said you need to nuke Gaza and finish it off, the Republican congressman. I mean, Trump obviously didn't say that, but that finish the job rhetoric is similar to what that congressman cleaned up his nuke Gaza comments to mean. So anyway, I think the freak out over where Trump would be from the Israeli perspective and from the right wing, we got to support Israel no matter what perspective, is misplaced. Although I do acknowledge that he does not have the ideological fervency around this issue that certainly Joe Biden does.
I have no idea what he's going to do. That's always kind of the fun thing with Trump. I mean, we have a relative idea, but I still found it noteworthy, and I did find it especially interesting that the Netanyahu personal angle, and also the fact, I mean, look, let's not pretend. Miriam Adelson is one of the most powerful people in the entire GOP. Her late husband, Sheldon Adelson, the multi-billionaire Las Vegas Sands. I mean, was the funder of Birthright, probably single-handedly responsible for a huge portion of the GOP electorate's actual like positioning on Israel. For him to still say that to a Miriam Adelson interviewee is actually pretty crazy. Now, you know, you could take whatever you want from that. You have no idea which way it will go, but noteworthy to me nonetheless that at least in Israel, they were like, oh, wow, like at least the Israeli right, they're starting to understand that things are a little bit different.
Here's what is important is, even though, like I said, I don't think that their concern over whether Trump is going to be pro-Israel or not is particularly well-founded. The fact that there's a bit of a freak out over it is actually positive, because one of the things that you might expect is that, you know, Bibi would prefer Trump to be in office and thinks he can basically like, you know, thumb his nose at Joe Biden and wait out these little, you know, hand-wringing recriminations that are coming from the Biden administration with the expectation that he's going to have Trump, his buddy, to deal with next time around. And so this at least scrambles that calculus a little bit, and in that way it is a positive thing, not to mention it's just the comments are amusing in and of themselves. They were shocked to their core.
Very funny.
All right, so let's go ahead and get to the business news with regards to Donald Trump. Let's put this up on the screen. So we just learned that Truth Social lost $58 million last year. And as a result, their stock absolutely tanked. It slid ultimately at the end of the day 21%. At one point during the day, it was down 25%. That is a direct hit, obviously, to Donald Trump and his wealth because he owns a 57% stake in that company. So as a result of this massive drop, his personal net worth dropped $1 billion in a day. We can put up the chart showing the trajectory of the Trump Media and Technology Group stock price. This is over a long period of time when it was a SPAC and whatever. So we can see in the recent era there at the end of this chart, kind of up and down movement. Then you have this huge spike just before they, officially become this Trump Media and Technology stock. And then yesterday you see this precipitous fall in the stock price, which, it's a big deal for Trump because he has a cash crunch right now because of his legal issues. He did catch a bit of a break in New York in terms of what he's going to have to put down up front. But it's still a lot of money that he's on the hook for here. So the fact that the stock price took such a hit is significant. And also, as we discussed before, so Trump Media and Technology Group, True Social, they generated just $4.1 million in revenue last year and lost $58 million. So the idea that this is some multi-billion-dollar company is just like the most preposterous thing ever. But it's basically a meme stock. His supporters liked the stock. They wanted to help Trump. They wanted to see if they could make some money off of it too. So they've been bidding it up and up and up. And a significant portion of that, although not all of it, came crashing down yesterday.
Yeah, what's interesting is that it actually highlights some issues with SPACs and with the shell companies and the way that they go public, in that the filing was made after actually the offering. Now, as I understand it, this is something unique in particular to when SPACs are allowed to go public before then they're allowed to report their financials, and is a little bit different than a traditional IPO. I was reading a little bit in the business press. But the filing at the end of the day shocked all of Wall Street, not just because of where the price was, because it showed that the company generated, Krystal, just $750,000 in revenue in just the fourth quarter of last year. I mean, I think people need to understand this too. Fourth quarter, especially if you're doing advertising, that's like the best time, because that's when a huge portion of ad spend is actually recorded and is actually deployed, because that's when all of us are shopping for Christmas presents or Black Friday. I mean, it's like for us, for example, here on YouTube, that's when we're gonna make the most amount of money, because that is when our ad rates, are gonna go up. And then Q1, January through March, is usually the worst time because that's like the lowest ad spend period. So for them to bring in just some $750,000 in revenue is honestly stunning, given it's like, how are you even signing up any clients? And then you give their top line figures, and then you have to wonder about what that growth is and about the burn rate. For some $60 million. That's another question I have. I'm like, what the hell are you even spending $60 million on? Is this just, what is it? Servers? Like, it can't take that many engineers to run this. It's very basic technology. Look at Elon. He fired 90% of the people at Twitter, and this site mostly still works. It's like, what are you doing over there?
Apparently, a lot of it was an interest expense. I'm not really clear interest on what, but I guess some sort of loan, massive debt that they So anyway, that is a problem, because that means that's going to continue potentially indefinitely.
Right.
The thing with True Social, just to pretend like this is a serious business model for a moment, we were always skeptical of these like Twitter alternatives back when, Trump was kicked off of Twitter and before it was in the Elon Musk era and whatever. But at that point, at least there was some sort of a business logic to a Twitter alternative of like, you've got all these conservatives who are upset about the way this company is being managed, who feel like it doesn't represent their values, who want to be able to go somewhere else. And so if you've got Donald Trump on this other platform that's basically Twitter, but it's run by someone that you feel more ideologically aligned with, that at least has some logic to it. But now that you have the Elon Twitter era, and it's much more of a sympathetic place to conservatives, and it's, sort of coded right-wing now, whether the reality of that is true or not, the business case really doesn't make any sense. At this point, True Social is just relevant only because Trump is on it. And I can't say that I have personally spent a lot of time on True Social, but apparently because there's no liberals there to to sneer at and mock, it's also kind of destructive to the conservative movement, because it's just them arguing with each other and tearing each other apart too.
I don't know enough.
But it's this, it's this tiny silo where the only thing that really matters on it is whatever Donald Trump says, which gets picked up and also put on Twitter, and which is where we usually see it, or also published, by media outlets when it's something noteworthy, like his various Easter deranged truths. So it really doesn't have a logical business case at this point. So on the one hand, it's like, oh, I can't believe they only got in $750,000 in revenue last quarter, but it's also like, who is even advertising on this platform at all?
Gold.
What business would say, oh, the place I really want to be is Truth Social? It's going to be definitionally, it's going to be very niche organizations who are really just trying to target this specific ideological group. And, I was trying to look up how many daily active users Truth Social has. That information's not out there, but it obviously is dwarfed by other, mainstream social media platforms. So in any case, I think it was only a matter of time before there was a significant crash, and I would expect that there's more to come. And again, it is one more illustration of just how incredibly fake our economy is, because the idea that this, even after the crash, it still has like a $6.6 billion valuation. It's crazy.
No, it's going to need, and that's the other thing, is that they haven't yet had to tell us what their number of monthly users is. There is an estimate that there are approximately 1 million monthly active users, but not daily active users. I mean, for context, I think Twitter has 217 million, I believe, like actual daily active users. I'm pretty sure. I'd have to go back. Yeah, daily user base of 217 million as of April of 2022. Don't know what it is under Elon. According to Elon, it's actually up. So, anyway, so we're looking at 200 to 300 times. And just so everybody knows, Truth Social is worth $6 billion. Fidelity has marked down their investment in Elon's Twitter by some 70%. So let's do the math here. Let's do 0.3 times. What did Elon pay for it? $44 billion. So their Fidelity is valuing Twitter under Elon around $13 billion. So there's no way that it's worth double. So it's like,
ridiculous.
that actually sounds reasonable to me, $13 billion for the current Twitter, but $6 billion is wildly outrageous.
I mean, think about that. Okay, obviously it's not exactly apples to apples because we're in a very different business here, but only 1 million monthly active users. That means way more people watch our show in a month than are active on Truth Social.
I don't even know how many.
So to show you what a tiny niche sliver of the market is and how completely irrelevant it is the moment that Donald Trump stops posting there.
Yeah, not to brag, but, might as well if we have the data in front of us. It would be some, 20 million, something like that. That sounds pretty good in terms of how we're doing. But yeah, we're not idiots, and we don't think that our business is worth $6 billion either. So there we go.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.